Tonight, before sleep reaches you, I want to show you something gentle and quietly astonishing. You've felt winter many times. The cold, the early darkness, the way the world seems to hold its breath. But there is something deeper happening. Around you, above you, and inside you. Something you've sensed but never had the words for. Have you noticed that winter doesn't just change the world outside? It changes you. Your breath slows. Your thoughts move differently. Your body asks for softer light, warmer spaces, longer moments of stillness. And maybe you've wondered, even if only once, why does winter feel like an invitation to rest in a way nothing else does? Stay here with me for a while, because in the next few moments you're going to see winter, its science, its silence, its strange, comforting intelligence, in a way you've never seen it before. And by the time we reach the end, you may find that winter isn't cold at all, only quiet. Quiet enough for you to finally fall asleep. You notice it long before you name it. A softness in the air, a slower rhythm in the light, a feeling, subtle but certain, that the world is leaning into a quieter season. And you may wonder, almost in a whisper, what changes first? The light, or you? That question lingers for a moment, like a snowflake turning in a cold beam of sun. Before science begins to unfold its calm explanation, the story starts with a tilt, 23.5 degrees. A small angle, almost shy, carved into the way Earth moves around the sun. That tilt decides everything. When flowers open, when shadows elongate, when birds depart, and when winter silently arrives without ever needing to announce itself. Because as Earth travels along its long, oval path, this tilt gently turns each hemisphere away from the sun at different times of the year. Not dramatically, not suddenly. Just enough for sunlight to fall at a softer angle, spreading out across the surface, instead of landing with summer's direct warmth. And as the light stretches thinner, something delicate happens. The days shorten, the nights lengthen, the world breathes out, and you begin to feel winter not as a season of cold, but as a shift in the pace of time itself. Yet the question returns, almost as if it wants to be sure you're still following. How can such a tiny tilt change entire worlds? When sunlight arrives at a slant, its energy must cross more atmosphere, losing strength along the way. The warmth that once soaked into soil now hesitates. Heat escapes more easily into the long nights. Clouds lose their summer urgency, drifting quieter and lower. It's as if the planet is turning the volume down, 1 degree of light at a time. Animals sense this change long before humans do. Long before calendars or clocks. A deer feels it in the growth of its winter coat. A fox hears it in the crisping of fallen leaves beneath its paws. Even the humble chickadee adjusts its metabolism, burning fuel differently as nights deepen. And as each creature adapts, you realize something gentle but profound. Winter is not an interruption, it is a negotiation between life and light. But there is still a small mystery waiting in the shadows. One you may not have noticed until now. If Earth weren't tilted, winter would never come. The poles would never freeze. The seasons would blur into sameness. Forests, oceans, insects, the cultures humans built. None of them would look the way they do. It's strange to imagine that cold, bare branches or the hush after snowfall exist, because the planet carries a quiet, permanent lean. A lean so subtle that if you held a globe in your hands, you might miss it entirely. And yet because of that lean, the sun rises low and amber in the winter sky, painting long horizontal shadows across fields and rooftops. You can almost picture the photons, still traveling at the speed of light, arriving a little tired, a little stretched, as if participating in winter's slower mood. Even the atmosphere joins this gentle transformation. Cold air is denser, heavier, cleaner. It scatters shorter wavelengths, letting blues sharpen and making distant mountains appear closer, more carved, more patient. Astronomers quietly celebrate winter for this reason. The stars seem steadier. The sky grows darker earlier. The universe feels nearer. And still, another question emerges, like a soft knock on a frost-covered window. Do humans change because winter comes, or because light itself changes them? Science answers gently. Your circadian rhythm shifts with day length. Melatonin rises earlier. Your body leans toward warmth, toward rest, toward slower evenings and quieter mornings. It is not weakness. It is biology remembering something ancient. The same instinct that once guided migrations, harvests, and stories told by firelight. Even light's absence becomes meaningful. When nights stretch, the brain recalibrates, noticing subtleties it ignores in the brightness of summer. You hear the creak of wood cooling. You see your breath turn to silver in the air. You feel the world becoming detail by detail, moment by moment, more intimate. And as you picture Earth continuing its patient orbit, another unexpected truth appears, an elegant bit of physics that offers its own micro-dopamine reward. Winter is not caused by distance. In fact, in the northern hemisphere, Earth is actually closest to the sun in early January, a small surprise hidden inside a quiet season. Winter is colder not because the sun is far away, but because the sun's gift arrives at an angle too soft to warm the ground with its usual certainty. A small tilt, a big difference, a lesson folded inside the light. Plants adapt not by fleeing winter, but by preparing for it. Trees let go of their leaves to conserve energy. Roots slow their breathing, drinking only what they must. Buds form months early, waiting under protective shells, holding spring inside them like a secret they're not ready to tell. Even frozen soil has a serenity to it, a stillness that cradles seeds throughout the long dark, protecting life in a moment when life seems absent. Another paradox of winter. The season that looks most still is also the season that prepares the most. Humans have sensed this rhythm for thousands of years. Ancient cultures noticed the shortening days and the sun's lower arc across the sky, and they found comfort in marking the turning point. The winter solstice became a promise written in celestial geometry, the reassurance that the light would return. Fire festivals, candles, lanterns, evergreen branches, all symbols of a truth so gentle it could only be felt, not forced. Even in the longest night, Earth is already tilting back toward dawn. And that thought leads to yet another quiet wonder. If winter begins with a subtle tilt, how many other transformations in life begin with something just as small? You sit with that question for a moment. That's no rush. Winter doesn't hurry, and neither do you. All around the planet, the shift continues. Oceans release stored heat into the cool atmosphere. Winds change patterns as warm air rises more slowly. Snow begins its long conversation with the ground, insulating it like wool. Even silence changes, becoming thicker, softer, shaped by the way snow absorbs sound frequencies. And as this slow choreography unfolds, you sense the real message winter has been offering you all along. A season is not just weather. It is a change in light, in rhythm, in the quiet agreement between Earth and everything living upon it. You are part of that agreement, carried gently through it, one soft winter night at a time. And somewhere just beyond this moment, another miniature wonder waits. A detail so delicate you almost overlook it, inviting you to follow the story of winter a little further. toward the next layer of calm. You follow the slow rhythm of Earth's tilted journey for a moment longer, letting the idea settle that a quiet lean of the planet reshapes everything you see and feel. And just as this understanding softens into comfort, another question rises, gentle but insistent, like a candle being lit in a silent room. If winter begins with the fading of light, what happens when the light reaches its lowest point? That small curiosity guides you into the next part of the story, where darkness doesn't simply fall. It reaches a quiet, elegant peak. The winter solstice, the longest night of the year, the moment when the sun pauses, just for an instant, at the southernmost point of its journey across the sky. A moment so subtle that if you weren't paying attention, you might never notice it. But ancient people noticed. They felt the sun's slow descent. They watched the shadows stretch day after day, and they sensed the turning point before they could name it. You picture the solstice not as an event of astronomy, but as a breath in the year's long cycle. The brief stillness between an exhale of darkness and an inhale of returning light. And already you can feel a little cliffhanger opening inside you. Why did this one moment matter so much to people across time? Science offers an answer wrapped in calm simplicity. At the solstice, Earth is still tilted, still moving, still orbiting, but the sun's daily path reaches its lowest arc in the sky. Light lingers the shortest, shadows live the longest, and on that night, the hemisphere you live in is turned as far away from the sun as it will ever be. A quiet extreme, the edge of darkness, the turning point where departure becomes return. And for cultures that depended on the rhythms of light, this turning point meant survival. Not because the cold suddenly deepened, but because the light finally stopped shrinking. From that day forward, sunlight would grow again, minute by minute, breath by breath, hope by hope. You imagine ancient people noticing this subtle shift long before clocks, telescopes, or charts. A shepherd watching sunrise inch slightly north. A farmer catching a faint lengthening of evening glow. A child seeing the first spark of color return to a pale horizon. And the moment they sensed the change, something universal unfolded. A desire to celebrate light even when it was at its weakest. Another question arises in your mind, almost playful in its quietness. How did so many cultures, without ever meeting, decide to honor light in the same way? You follow that thread gently. In Scandinavia, people lit fires to guide the sun home. In ancient Rome, Saturnalia brought candles, torches, and days of feasting to brighten winter's shadowed edges. Across Europe, Yule logs burned through the longest night, sending sparks upward like tiny promises. In China, families waited for Dongji, the return of the sun's strength, welcoming the longer days to come. In the American Southwest, Pueblo peoples created soil ceremonies to invite the sun back with masked dances and sacred fires. Different lands, different people. Yet the same instinct. When darkness grows deepest, humans reach for light. And inside that instinct lies a soft scientific truth, one of those small, satisfying bits of microdopamine. Light doesn't only change the world outside you, it changes you. Your brain responds to brightness by lifting alertness, easing fear, and opening pathways that help you feel grounded. Even a small flame, a candle, a hearth, a lantern, can steady your inner rhythm during a long winter night. You picture that flame, a single point of warmth, barely moving, barely breathing, lighting a room just enough to reveal its shape. And you begin to understand why ancient people saw fire not only as heat, but as reassurance. But there is a detail here, soft and almost hidden, that invites another gentle cliffhanger. Why did people celebrate during the darkest moment, instead of waiting for the light to return? The answer is surprisingly tender. The solstice is the pivot, the hinge, the moment where darkness is not growing but gently giving way. And to people who watch the sky with patient devotion, the longest night was not a threat. It was the proof that the turning had begun, the darkness had reached its fullest form. And because it had reached its fullest form, it could finally recede. You sit with that for a moment, the idea that endings and beginnings can share the same breath. Science adds another layer, soft and unexpected. Because Earth's orbit is elliptical, the solstice does not occur at the same distance from the Sun each year. Sometimes Earth is closer during the longest night. Sometimes it is farther. The coldest weeks do not align exactly with the solstice. Temperature lags behind sunlight by many weeks. A small temporal echo. The world responding slowly, gently, in its own time. And that echo deepens the meaning of solstice traditions. People weren't celebrating warmth. They weren't celebrating weather. They were celebrating the idea of light returning, even before the world had begun to feel it. There is beauty in that. A form of faith practiced through fire and candlelight, through song and gathering, through stories told in rooms where shadows curled along the walls. You imagine sitting beside those fires, hearing languages you've never spoken, watching sparks drift upward into the longest night, feeling the shared human truth. Light is more beautiful when you meet it after darkness, and then a final, gentle insight unfolds. Another micro-dopamine resting quietly in the facts of astronomy. The solstice is not a single moment for the whole world. It arrives at the same instant everywhere, but at different hours depending on where you stand. To some it comes before sunrise, to others after dusk. A global night turning on a single hinge, felt differently in every place but still shared by all. You picture Earth from space, one half in daylight, one half in night. A thin blue arc glowing at the edge, and somewhere on its surface, countless points of fire flicker, tiny human suns marking the turning of the world. You let that image settle inside you, quiet, warm, steady. Because the solstice is not only about darkness or light, it is about the moment in between, the still point where the year pauses, the breath between seasons. And as you follow that thought, a soft curiosity opens ahead of you. An invitation to step into the next part of winter's story. The frozen wonders shaped by snow, ice, and the strange, delicate chemistry of cold. A new mystery waiting just beyond the flame. You leave the warm glow of solstice fires behind, carrying the quiet comfort of returning light. For a moment, the world feels brighter, but then another thought drifts in, soft, crystalline, almost weightless. If light begins its slow comeback, what shapes the whiteness that winter lays gently across the land? The question feels like a snowflake on your palm, cool, delicate, gone if you breathe too hard. And so you follow it, letting it guide you into winter's most silent miracle. Snow. Not just cold water, not just frozen air, but a geometry so intricate it seems impossible that it forms quietly in clouds, unseen by anyone at all. You start with a simple curiosity. How does a snowflake begin? Science offers an answer that feels almost like a whispered secret. High above the ground, invisible droplets of water drift in air colder than freezing. Instead of turning into liquid, they skip that step entirely. They freeze directly into tiny crystals, molecules locking themselves into the first lines of a six-pointed pattern. A symmetry written into water itself, That's where every snowflake begins, not as a shape, but as an act of skipping. Skipping the liquid stage, skipping the familiar, choosing a more delicate path. Already you feel a gentle cliffhanger forming. How can something so small become something so beautiful? As the crystal falls, it passes through pockets of air with different temperatures and humidity. Each layer adds its own brush stroke. Some stretch branches outward, some carve valleys, some lace tiny bridges between the arms. No two paths through the cloud are the same, so no two snowflakes are ever the same. Not once, not in all of Earth's winters, a quiet statistical miracle. You imagine millions of crystals swirling in the dusk sky, each one sculpted by invisible currents, entire storms of unique shapes, and no one seeing most of them at all. A beauty winter creates simply because it can. And then you notice something else, something you've always felt but never fully understood: the silence. Snow doesn't only cover the ground, it softens the world. The footsteps of animals, the hum of distant roads, the rustle of branches, everything becomes muted. You wonder gently, why does snow make the world so quiet? Another tender piece of science reveals itself. Fresh snow is full of tiny spaces, little pockets of air trapped between crystals. These pockets catch sound, bouncing it between their walls and absorbing the sharp edges of noise. The result is a kind of hush, a natural insulation, a world wrapped not just in white but in quiet. You feel the calm settle inside you, but winter still has more to show. Another question waiting, forming like breath against cold glass. What about the delicate things that appear not in storms but in stillness? You follow the question and discover frost. Frost is snow's introverted cousin, quiet, patient, happier forming on windows than falling from clouds. When a surface grows cold enough, water vapor in the air slips onto it and freezes instantly. Instead of falling, frost climbs upward, branching into fern-like patterns, feathered spirals, needles of ice that look like they belong inside a crystal cave. And just like snowflakes, each frost pattern is unique. But frost grows out, not down. It spreads like thought, like memory, like music shifting from note to note. Then winter becomes bolder, offering new forms in places you might not expect. Thin ice glazing a pond overnight. Black ice hiding on a quiet road. Icicles building bead by bead, storing entire evenings of melting and refreezing inside their long glass bodies. You pause as another soft mystery approaches. How does a waterfall freeze when it never stops moving? The answer, surprisingly gentle, is patience. Cold air coats the outer layer of flowing water, freezing it bit by bit. The water beneath keeps moving, but the shell around it thickens. Over days or weeks, a waterfall can freeze into a sculpture, a hollow column glowing with the faint blue of compressed ice. Inside, the water still flows. That hidden motion becomes a kind of winter heartbeat. And then, deeper still, winter reveals its most surprising truth, another small gift of microdopamine. Water expands when it freezes. Almost everything else in the universe shrinks as it gets colder. But water does the opposite. Its molecules spread out, locking into a lattice that takes up more space. Because ice floats. You realize gently what that means. If ice sank, every lake would freeze from the bottom up. Fish would die, plants would perish, entire ecosystems would collapse each winter. Instead, ice sits on the surface like a protective lid, keeping the water below just warm enough for life to survive. A thin frozen roof that allows the world to begin again when spring returns. The expansion of ice, this tiny quirk of physics, is one of the reasons Earth carries life at all. You sit with that thought for a moment, letting it slow your breath. a single molecular pattern holding entire worlds together. Winter continues to unfold more wonders when you look closely. Clear lake ice, formed under perfectly calm conditions, becomes a window into the deep. Smooth, transparent, glowing faintly blue. You could stand above it and feel as if you're floating between air and water, supported by a sheet that seems too thin, too delicate, too precise to be real. Black ice on a road, nearly invisible, forms when rain freezes into a glossy layer with no air bubbles to scatter light. Dangerous for travelers, yet scientifically elegant in its purity. And hoarfrost, those sparkling white needles that form on branches, grows not by freezing water droplets, but by freezing vapor directly, building outward like a forest of tiny ice cathedrals. Each phenomena a reminder that winter isn't empty. It's intricate, busy, quiet only on the surface. And as you explore these frozen details, another soft question rises, like a snowflake drifting sideways in a gentle wind. If winter shapes the world with such delicate precision, what else changes when the cold deepens? That question becomes the bridge, the invitation, the doorway to what comes next. The secret lives of animals that move through snow, sleep beneath it, or wait patiently for the light to grow. You leave behind the crystals, the frost gardens, the frozen waterfalls, those quiet sculptures shaped by winter's breath. And as the stillness settles, another gentle curiosity rises inside you. If the world becomes this cold, this silent, this transformed, how do the creatures who live here endure it? That small question opens a new doorway, leading you from the still beauty of winter's ice into the living, breathing adaptations of the animals who move through this season with a grace uniquely their own. At first glance, winter seems empty. Fields look abandoned, forests sound hollow, shorelines rest beneath sheets of ice. But the emptiness is an illusion. Life doesn't disappear. It simply shifts its rhythm. You start with hibernation, one of nature's deepest, slowest acts. What does it feel like for a creature to sleep through winter? The question sits gently, like a paw print softening under falling snow. A bear prepares months in advance. It eats not to satisfy hunger, but to store warmth. When winter comes, the bear's heart slows, its temperature drops slightly, and it enters a state that looks like sleep but is deeper. A metabolic pause. Not unconscious, not gone. Just existing at the lowest setting, the way a fire becomes embers when the room grows cold. But here is a small surprise. A piece of micro-dopamine hidden in the calm. Bears aren't true hibernators. Their temperature doesn't fall as dramatically as that of other animals. They enter something closer to torpor, a lighter, adjustable state that lets them wake quickly if danger approaches. Ground squirrels, however, those tiny engineers of survival, drop their body temperature near freezing. Their hearts can beat as slowly as once every 20 seconds. For them, winter is not a season of sleep. It's a season of suspended animation. And bats? They huddle in caves where temperatures stay just above freezing, folding their wings around themselves like cloaks. Some can slow their breathing so much that an entire minute passes without a single inhale. You pause, letting these quiet adaptations settle. Every creature chooses a different setting on winter's scale of stillness. But not all animals sleep. Some move, softly, invisibly, beneath the snow. You picture the sub-Nevaean world, a hidden layer between the snowpack and the ground, warmed by the earth itself. Inside this pale, secret realm, mice run tunnels, voles build nests, and weasels slip silently through chambers no wider than your hand, and a gentle cliffhanger emerges. If life hides beneath the snow, does anything hunt there too? The answer arrives lightly. The Canada lynx, with its oversized paws, drifts across deep snow as if weightless. The ermine, its coat turning pure white in winter, moves through the subnivean maze with a speed that seems impossible in the cold. And foxes listen. You imagine a red fox standing perfectly still, ears sharp, head angled slightly, listening for the faint scratch of a vole beneath the snow. When the sound aligns with instinct, the fox leaps high, diving nose first into the snow to catch prey it cannot see. A hidden fact reveals itself here, another micro-dopamine. Foxes use Earth's magnetic field to help judge the angle of their pounce. A magnetic compass built into instinct. And then there are animals who vanish into the landscape by changing their colors. The snowshoe hare shifts from brown to white as the days shorten, not because of snow, but because of light. Photoreceptors in its eyes tell its body that winter is approaching. Its coat grows thick, hollow, and brilliantly white. Not just camouflage, but insulation. The ptarmigan, a bird of the far north, takes camouflage even further. Not only do its feathers turn white, its legs do too, feathered down to its toes, creating natural snowshoes that let it walk on drifts without sinking. But the most precise hunters of winter move through the air. You hear the question before science speaks it. How does an owl remain silent while flying? Feathers shaped like soft combs reduce turbulence. Edges serrated like delicate brushes muffle air. A velvet surface absorbs whooshes and whistles. And so, an owl glides without sound, seeing what snow hides, hearing what wind carries, striking with precision without ever disturbing the stillness. You feel the calm of that image, but winter's story has more to reveal. Some animals leave, others stay, each following a plan written deep within them. Migrating birds travel thousands of miles to escape the cold. Arctic terns fly from the Arctic to the Antarctic, the longest migration of any creature on Earth. Geese form their V-shapes, sharing the burden of wind, switching leaders when one grows tired. But many birds stay. Black-capped chickadees remember thousands of seed locations, storing food with an intelligence far beyond their size. Their brain neurons even restructure each winter, improving memory specifically for survival. Deer grow coats with hollow hairs that trap heat. Moose slow their pace, conserving energy in deep snow. Wolves expand their territories, traveling in family groups, reading the snow for stories of prey and movement. And beavers, those patient engineers, coat their lodges with mud before the freeze. When the mud hardens, it becomes stone-like, a fortress against cold, predators, and storms. Inside, the temperature stays surprisingly mild, warmed by the beaver's own bodies and insulated by the surrounding ice. You pause, letting another soft wonder emerge. How do animals sense winter before it arrives? Some feel the shortening days. Some sense hormonal changes linked to temperature. Some read the ground, the wind, the air pressure. Others listen to cues passed down through generations, knowledge carried in instincts older than memory. And somewhere within this web of quiet strategies, you begin to see winter differently. Not as a season of hardship, but as a negotiation. Each animal finding its own rhythm in the cold. Some sleep, some change shape, some change color, some listen more carefully, some build, some wander, some remain exactly where they are, trusting adaptations shaped by countless winters. Every creature meets the season with its own kind of wisdom. And as you let these images drift through you, the bear in its den, the hare blending with snow, the fox listening for movement, the owl gliding silently over frost, you sense another gentle question forming on the horizon of your mind. If animals transform this deeply for winter, How does the forest itself respond? That curiosity becomes the next step on your quiet journey, the soft bridge leading you from the lives of winter animals to the trees, the evergreens, the sleeping seeds, and the vast, patient intelligence of winter forests. You leave the quiet footsteps of winter animals behind, the fox listening beneath the snow, the hare turning white, the owl gliding like a drifting shadow. And as their world recedes into stillness, another curiosity takes shape beside you. If animals find so many ways to survive the cold, what about the trees that cannot move at all? The question feels almost tender, as if the forest itself is leaning toward you, waiting to tell its story. And so you follow, stepping into a place where winter settles not on fur or feathers but on bark, needles, roots, and branches stretching into pale, crystalline sky. At first glance, a winter forest can seem lifeless. Bare limbs, grey trunks, no rustling leaves, no hum of insects. Only the hush of cold air weaving between silent shapes. But you soon sense a deeper truth. The forest is not dead. It is simply practicing a different kind of living. You start with a familiar image, a single leaf falling in autumn. Slow, soft, almost like a pause in the year's breath. Why do trees let go of what they've grown with such care? The cliffhanger sits gently at the edge of your mind. Science answers with quiet clarity. Leaves are expensive, they lose water, they require constant energy, and in winter's dim light the cost outweighs the benefit. So deciduous trees choose to release them, sealing off each stem with a scar that protects the branch through months of cold. Without leaves, the tree stops losing water to the dry winter air. It holds what little moisture it has, storing it like a treasure. But here comes your first micro-dopamine. Trees don't drop leaves because the cold arrives. They drop leaves because the light disappears. Light, not temperature, tells the tree it is time to let go. You sit with that for a moment, letting the thought settle like a leaf on snow. Then you look upward, noticing something else. Not all trees surrender their greenery. Evergreens keep their needles, slender, pointed, unchanging even through storms of ice. How do they survive what others cannot? The question hovers, waiting. Their strategy is elegant. Evergreen needles are wrapped in a waxy coating thick enough to resist freezing winds. Their shape reduces surface area, preventing water loss, and inside each needle is antifreeze, natural compounds that lower the freezing point of the cell's liquid, allowing it to stay fluid when temperatures fall far below zero. A pine needle, so small and simple, is a winter survival capsule. You picture entire forests of evergreens standing like quiet guardians through storms, their green softening the stark white world around them. But winter's forest holds another surprise, one so subtle you might miss it unless you look very closely. Buds, tiny promises wrapped in tight layers. They look asleep, yet they are already forming the leaves, flowers, and shoots of spring. Not in March, not in April, but in autumn, long before snow arrives. Another micro-dopamine settles in. Trees prepare next spring before winter even begins, storing an entire season of growth inside buds that wait months for warmth. And here another gentle cliffhanger forms. If buds are so fragile, how do they survive nights that drop to 20, 30, 40 degrees below zero? The answer is a small, quiet marvel. Buds are protected by overlapping scales made of modified leaves. Inside, sugars accumulate, lowering the freezing point of the delicate tissues. The bud becomes a sealed chamber, guarded from wind, frost, and ice. A tree in winter is not dormant in the way animals sleep. It is buffering life inside tiny packages. You continue deeper into the forest, noticing new details with each step. Bark thickens, forming armor. Roots slow their intake, sipping nutrients at the faintest pace. Cells release water into spaces between them so the water can freeze without rupturing the cell walls. This trick, sending water outside the cells, is one of the forest's most important adaptations. If ice formed inside the cells, the expanding crystals would destroy them. Instead, trees let the ice form in safer spaces, protecting life from within. You pause, letting another micro-dopamine appear. Trees freeze safely by controlling where ice forms. It feels almost like a language, a conversation between cold and wood. And then winter deepens, temperatures drop. Wind moves between trunks with a low whisper. The world becomes harder, sharper, quieter. How do forests survive extremes that plunge to 40 degrees? The cliffhanger opens slowly, like a door revealing a darker, colder room. The answer begins underground. Roots stay insulated by soil and snow. Even when the air reaches 40 degrees, the ground beneath drifts around freezing, offering stability to the foundation of every tree. Above ground, another strategy appears, the architecture of branches. In extreme cold, water inside tree bark shrinks as it freezes, causing small pops and cracks. These sounds, the frost cracks of winter, are not signs of death, but signs of pressure releasing safely, the tree adjusting to cold without breaking. And inside the trunk, something extraordinary happens. Sap thickens into a syrup-like consistency. In some species, it can become so sugar-rich that it resists freezing entirely. A maple in January is quietly preparing the sweetness of spring. Farther north, in boreal forests where winters are long and harsh, black spruce trees grow tightly packed, creating a microclimate between trunks that reduces wind chill. Their narrow shape sheds snow, preventing heavy buildup that could break branches. The forest is not just a collection of trees, it is a cooperative system for surviving cold. And just when you think you understand winter's patience, the forest offers one final soft revelation. Snow itself becomes part of the survival plan. Snow insulates. A thick layer traps heat beneath it, keeping the forest floor warmer than the air above. Beneath snow, roots rest in quiet safety. Mosses glow green even in midwinter. Insects slumber in tiny pockets of warmth. The coldest landscapes depend on snow for warmth. You hold that paradox for a moment. Frozen water creating shelter, cold creating safety, winter creating the conditions for spring. And as you let these images drift, buds sealed against frost, needles waxed against wind, sap thick with sugar, roots sleeping beneath warm soil, you sense a new gentleness forming on the horizon of your thoughts. If the forest holds life so carefully through winter, what happens when light touches it again? That soft question becomes your next step. The quiet bridge leading you from the deep patience of winter trees toward the luminous beauty that winter paints in the sky and across the landscape, where dawn glows purple, moonlight brightens snow, and the world becomes a canvas of light. You rise softly from the quiet patience of winter forests, from the buds sealed tight, from the snow-shielding roots, from the trees standing still beneath a pale sky. And as you step out of the woods, the world opens into brightness again. A new curiosity drifts toward you like a breath of cold morning air. If winter slows the earth, why does its light feel so strangely beautiful? The question glows at the edge of your mind, like a lantern held up in early twilight. And slowly the sky begins to answer. Winter light doesn't rush. It arrives gently, quietly, as though it has been softened by the cold before touching your skin. You start with dawn, not the sharp golden flash of summer, but winter's lavender beginning. The sun rises low, its rays stretch through more atmosphere, scattering shorter wavelengths. allowing purples and pinks to bloom across the sky. A faint cliffhanger stirs. Why does winter paint with these colors? Science unfolds its explanation with the smoothness of falling snow. Cold air holds less moisture, less haze, less distortion, so light travels more cleanly, more patiently. The sky becomes a canvas stripped of noise, letting subtle hues appear where you'd never notice them in other seasons. A soft micro-dopamine arrives. When humidity drops in winter, the sky's visibility can increase by up to 40%. You hold that in your mind like a calm truth. Winter isn't darker, it's clearer. Then the day deepens, and you watch the sunlight move slowly across snowy ground, reflecting upward, brightening everything with a gentle, pale glow. But the moment that steals your breath is sunset. In winter, the sun dips low along a shallow arc, stretching the warm wavelengths, amber, tangerine, rose, across the horizon for longer than in any other season. A cliffhanger appears softly. Why do winter sunsets linger so long? Because the sun moves more horizontally than vertically. Its descent feels like a glide, not a fall. Warm colors stretch and widen, painting entire landscapes with soft fire. A micro-dopamine settles in. Snow reflects these colors upward, creating double sunsets, one in the sky and one shimmering on the ground. You let that image linger before following winter into the night. And there, the world becomes even more astonishing. The moon rises above snow and becomes a quiet mirror. Moonlight reflects on ice crystals. Snow glows faintly blue. Darkness feels less like absence and more like a gentle veil. A soft question comes to you. Why does winter moonlight feel brighter but quieter? Cold air again. Fewer particles, less humidity. Moonlight passes through a cleaner atmosphere, making shadows sharper while keeping the world hushed. A micro-dopamine glimmers. Under a full winter moon, snowy landscapes can be bright enough to read without artificial light. You imagine that. Standing on fresh snow, watching the world shine in a soft blue glow, as if the night itself were breathing light. And then winter lifts your gaze even higher. The stars appear, not scattered, not faint, but crisp, steady, almost close enough to touch. Another cliffhanger stirs. Why does winter reveal the stars so clearly? Cold air shrinks, reducing turbulence. Light twinkles less. The atmosphere steadies. Stars sharpen. And in winter, something else happens. Some of the brightest stars in the sky gather into a vast shape known as the winter hexagon. Sirius, Rigel, Aldebaran, Capella, Pollux, Procyon, all linked by faint lines your mind can trace like quiet constellations of thought. A soft micro-dopamine unfolds. The winter hexagon is one of the easiest celestial patterns to see with the naked eye. Even in areas with light pollution, it becomes a compass of cold nights, a reminder that winter is the season when the universe feels closest. But winter has one more light to offer, one that does not simply shine, but dances. The aurora. You picture ribbons of green, purple, and pink sweeping across Arctic skies, moving softly, silently, as if stirred by an unseen hand. Your next question forms gently. Why do auroras feel alive? Because they are shaped by solar wind, charged particles from the sun meeting Earth's magnetic field. These particles strike oxygen and nitrogen in the upper atmosphere, lighting them up like the world's oldest lanterns. A micro-dopamine settles in. The colors of auroras depend on altitude. Green near 60 miles, red above 150 miles, blue and purple in between. Light sculpted by physics into silent movement. Then winter guides you toward a different kind of glow. Not in the sky, but on mountains. Alpenglow, the phenomenon where peaks blush pink after sunset, even when the sun is no longer visible. Light scatters off distant atmosphere and returns to illuminate mountaintops from behind, turning them into floating islands of color. A small cliffhanger rises. How can mountains glow after the sun is gone? Because winter air bends sunlight softly, sending the last rays upward instead of downward. Only high peaks catch this light. The world below stays dim. Another micro-dopamine spark. Alpenglow is strongest in winter because cold air creates cleaner scattering paths. You picture it. A mountain turning rose gold against a blue horizon, alone in its quiet radiance. And winter still hasn't finished. It leads you to another small miracle. Light pillars. When tiny ice crystals drift through cold air, city lights reflect off them vertically, creating glowing columns that stretch upward into the night. Silent, bright, otherworldly. You feel a final soft cliffhanger forming. Why does winter create so many forms of beauty from simple light? The answer comes like a whisper. Because winter reduces the world. It removes noise, it strips away the unnecessary. It leaves only light, ice, air, and silence, and lets them meet in the most delicate ways. Winter turns the world into a canvas where small things matter more. The angle of sunlight, the clarity of air, the reflective power of snow, the patience of long nights. There is no rush, no clutter, no excess. Just radiance. And as these images settle into your mind, lavender dawns, orange sunsets, blue moonlight, sharp stars, dancing auroras, glowing peaks, you sense a gentle truth forming beneath them. Winter's beauty isn't loud, it's whispered. It asks you not to chase it, but to notice it, to slow enough to see the colors hidden in stillness. And from that stillness, a soft question rises, one that leads naturally toward your next step. If winter's light can transform the sky, how does it shape the ways we move, play, and find joy in the cold? That question becomes your quiet bridge, guiding you from winter's celestial beauty toward the human joys and gentle activities that unfold across snowy days. You drift out of the quiet glow of winter light, the purples of dawn, the blue fire of moonlit snow, the slow shimmer of auroras on the horizon. And as the sky settles back into its calm, another thought begins to form beside you. If winter shapes the world with silence and beauty, how do people move through this season without disturbing its stillness? The question lingers like a warm breath in cold air, and slowly you begin to see that winter invites not only stillness, but a kind of soft, playful motion, movements that match the pace of the season rather than challenge it. You start with something simple, a frozen pond, smooth, glass-like, quiet as a held breath. A child steps onto it, skates whispering against the surface, drawing slow arcs of silver on the ice. There's a small cliffhanger in the moment. How can something as delicate as frozen water hold the weight of so many people? Science answers gently. Ice thickens downward, layer by layer, as heat escapes into the colder air. When the top freezes, it insulates the water beneath, allowing the surface to grow steadily stronger. At 8 inches of thickness, a frozen lake can hold a car. At 12, a truck. A simple, elegant engineering done by nature. The thought widens, expanding like the graceful turns of a figure skater. Ice skating becomes more than a sport. It becomes a way of feeling winter's balance beneath your feet. Each glide is a conversation with friction, a gentle negotiation between motion and cold. Just beyond the pond, you imagine another scene. An outdoor hockey game, sticks tapping, blades carving, laughter carried across the frozen air. This version of winter isn't loud. It's lively in a soft, human way. It fits the season's rhythm, and you begin to wonder, why do people play differently when the world is covered in snow? The answer unfolds with calm clarity. Snow transforms landscapes into low-resistance surfaces. It cushions, it softens, it reflects light upward, making afternoon glow feel longer. And perhaps most importantly, snow encourages play because it is one of the few natural materials safe to throw, roll, or sculpt. That thought opens a new memory. A snowball held gently in mittened hands. Light, cold, perfect in its roundness before the first throw. Snowball fights at their heart are exchanges of harmless winter energy. They depend not on strength but on timing, aim, and laughter. From there, your imagination shifts to the hills, long slopes brushed with powder, ready for sleds. Sledding seems simple, yet a question rises softly in the back of your mind. What makes sliding on snow feel almost effortless? The answer lies in a tiny whisper of physics. When sled runners press down, they melt the very top layer of snow, creating a microscopic film of water. This layer acts like a lubricant, allowing sleds to glide with surprising speed. Microdopamine at its finest. A miniature miracle of winter thermodynamics. You picture children riding down hills, scarves trailing, their laughter warm against the cold wind. Then adults follow. Some careful, some fast. All momentarily return to a younger version of themselves. Farther along the trail, cross-country skiers move through the forest. Not quickly, not forcefully, just steadily, matching the quiet, elongated rhythm of winter itself. Skiing is not simply motion, it is mediation through movement. And deeper still, another winter ritual appears. Ice fishing, a small shed or tent placed on a frozen lake. A hole drilled through thick ice. A line dropped into still water. The mini cliffhanger settles softly. How can fish remain active beneath all that ice? Cold water, interestingly, becomes densest at 39 grader. So the bottom of a lake stays slightly warmer than the top, allowing fish to move, feed, and live slowly through winter. Ice, acting as a lid, keeps the lake from freezing solid. Another delicate synergy, life sustained by the very cold that seems to threaten it. You let these quiet outdoor scenes settle for a moment. Winter doesn't stop activities, it transforms them. And then your thoughts drift to the way people gather in winter. Not outside, but inside, around warmth. You picture winter festivals with lanterns glowing along town streets, children running in thick coats, hot chocolate steaming in paper cups, gloves wrapped around warm cider, music drifting from small stages into the cold night air. Winter gatherings feel different from summer ones, closer, softer, bound by the shared desire to warm the body and lighten the spirit. A small microdopamine settles into your awareness. Because cold constricts blood vessels in the skin, warm drinks feel more soothing in winter than in any other season. The warmth spreads outward, relaxing muscles tightened by cold. And so hot cocoa becomes more than a treat. It becomes a sensory experience shaped by biology. You move inward now, into living rooms, cabins, porches where breath fogs the air but hearts feel full. You imagine friends sitting near a fire, boots drying by the door, windows edged with frost. Conversations slow, silences stretch comfortably. Winter has a strange way of making people more present. Another cliffhanger appears. Why do gatherings feel especially warm when the world outside is cold? The answer lies partly in contrast. Cold sharpens the senses. It makes warm light feel brighter. It makes voices sound closer. It makes the simple act of being together feel intentional, chosen, cherished. But there is another, quieter reason. Winter reduces stimuli. No buzzing insects, no rushing rivers, no dense foliage. the world gives fewer things to focus on. So the mind returns to the nearest source of comfort, one another. Then there is the most iconic joy of all, the snowman. A simple sculpture of rolling snow, carrot nose, pebble eyes, scarf tied gently around a round neck. But even here, winter hides a scientific whisper. Snow sticks best for sculpting at 32 degrees, 0 degrees. Slightly warmer snow bonds more easily, allowing crystals to connect like tiny hooks. Too cold and snow becomes powder. Too warm and it turns to slush. A perfect snowman requires a perfect temperature, another tiny, satisfying micro fact. You watch this scene assemble in your mind and realize winter activities carry something special. Not excitement, not urgency, but softness. Everything is slowed. Everything is cushioned. Everything is touched by light reflecting off snow. And as you follow these scenes, skaters gliding, sleds sliding, fires warming, families gathering, a final gentle thought begins to rise. If winter invites us to play and gather in these quiet, intentional ways, what about the moments when winter becomes powerful instead of peaceful? That question becomes the next step in your journey. The soft bridge leading you from winter's simple joys to the intense, swirling, atmospheric dramas that the season can sometimes bring. You leave the soft laughter around frozen ponds, the warm glow of winter festivals, the slow glide of sleds over snow. And as these gentle scenes fade, another question begins to rise. Quietly, like a shadow moving across an evening sky. If winter can be a season of play and warmth, how does it also hold such powerful storms? The question lingers with a calm curiosity. Not fear, not urgency. Just a desire to understand the other half of winter's character. The half shaped not by silence, but by the deep, steady force of cold air. You begin with a familiar vision. A grey sky thickening, flakes drifting down, the horizon softening until the world becomes a single shade of white. A snowfall, common, gentle, predictable. But part of you wonders, what turns a quiet snowfall into a blizzard that erases the world? Science answers in its patient way. A blizzard doesn't require the heaviest snow. It requires wind. Cold, persistent, directional wind, lifting snow from ground and sky, suspending it in air, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Snow becomes not a falling thing, but a flying thing, moving sideways, upwards, swirling in sheets that blur every line. The cliffhanger opens softly. Where does this wind come from? The answer lies in temperature differences. Cold air is dense, heavy, it sinks. Warm air rises. When the two meet, the boundaries between them tighten, pulling wind across the landscape. That wind picks up snow and writes new shapes on the world. Ridges, drifts, waves of white. A small micro-dopamine settles in. Snow can travel miles through the air after it falls. You imagine it. Flakes born hours ago, now carried across open spaces in a dance that never touches the ground in a straight line. And then winter reveals something even more unusual. Lake effect snow, a phenomenon so local, so precise, that one town may sit under blue sky while another, just a few miles away, disappears beneath feet of snow. You picture a cold wind crossing the surface of a warm lake. The lake exhales, moisture rises, clouds build. By the time the wind reaches shore again, it drops that moisture as snow, intense, steady, almost musical in its rhythm. The micro-dopamine here feels satisfying. A single lake can create snowstorms heavier than some mountain ranges. You let that truth settle, then drift toward the coast where another winter giant waits. The nor'easter, a storm named not for where it comes from, but for the winds it delivers. winds from the northeast carrying moisture from the Atlantic. You imagine a swirl of pressure systems just off the coast, rotating like a slow white galaxy, pushing snow inland in sweeping arcs. The cliffhanger arrives softly. Why do nor'easters feel different from other storms? Their power comes from contrast. Cold air from the continent meets warm, wet air from the ocean. When they collide, pressure drops sharply. Storms intensify. Snow thickens. Winds strengthen, wrapping the coastline in the kind of winter that leaves quiet footsteps buried by morning. Still, winter has more shapes than storms alone. You think of freezing rain. Rain that falls as liquid, touches a cold surface and becomes ice instantly. Branches glaze over. Sidewalks shine like glass. Cars wear coats of clear crystal. Your cliffhanger arrives as gently as the rain itself. Why does freezing rain form instead of snow? Because the atmosphere is layered. Snow forms high above, melts into rain as it falls through warm air, then freezes again when it meets cold ground. The process feels delicate, almost surgical, cutting temperature bands into slices. A small microdopamine reveals itself. Freezing rain can build layers of ice so clear that the world looks dipped in glass. But there is another version of winter's artistry, the ice storm. Not snow, not sleet, a slow accumulating weight. Branches bend under the weight of ice. Power lines hum with tension. Forests shine like sculptures, each twig encased in crystal. Beauty and burden held together. And then winter offers something wilder. Snow accompanied by lightning. Thunders now, a rare kind of storm where convection, normally a summer phenomenon, rises through cold air layers. The storm builds vertically. Electricity forms. Lightning flashes. Thunder rolls muffled by snow, low and soft like a distant drum covered in blankets. A microdopamine spark arrives. Snow absorbs sound so effectively that thunder in a snowstorm can feel close even when it's far away. You sit with that paradox. Lightning in flakes, thunder in silence. Then you turn to another element of winter's force, wind, not the playful gusts that push snowflakes sideways, but the deep, biting cold that reaches through jackets and gloves. Wind chill. A concept many know, but few truly understand. You ask yourself gently, why does wind make cold feel colder? Science explains softly. Your body warms the air around you with a thin layer of heat. Wind sweeps that warm air away, not painfully, not violently, just persistently. Without that protective layer, your skin loses heat faster and the cold sinks deeper. Frostbite becomes possible. Hypothermia too. Not because winter is cruel, but because cold is efficient. Yet even here, the science is unexpectedly comforting. The body warns you early, long before danger. Numbness, tingling, stiffening skin. Signals to seek warmth. Signals that work. Another cliffhanger appears. If winter can be this powerful, how do people endure it? The answer comes with quiet reassurance. Layered clothing traps warm air. Movement generates heat. Shelters conserve it. Technology and tradition together help humans meet winter with respect rather than fear. And winter, for all its force, holds something else too. It never lasts in one form. Storms pass, skies open, air calms. The world breathes again. You picture it. A street as after a storm, plowed clean, the sky washed in pale blue, roofs sparkling with fresh snow. Children sledding hours after the blizzard's last gust. Adults digging cars out with slow determination. Neighbors pausing to greet one another in the crystalline quiet. And as these scenes soften into view, winter's power no longer feels like a threat. It feels like part of a cycle, a rhythm the Earth has kept for millions of years. The cold shapes landscapes, storms sculpt valleys, ice forms and melts and forms again. And as you hold that idea gently, a final question rises like a lantern in the dim air. If winter's power can reshape the world, how does winter shape people, stories, and traditions across the globe? That question becomes your next quiet step. The bridge leading you from the storms of winter to the cultures, histories, and meanings humans have woven through the cold for thousands of years. You drift gently away from the swirling storms, the shimmering ice, the quiet thunder inside snow-filled skies. And as the air clears, the world opens again. Soft, wide, waiting. A new question rises beside you, unhurried, like a lantern being lifted in the dusk. If winter can be powerful and tender, playful and fierce, how different does it look across the places where humans live? The question lingers with a calm curiosity. And slowly, winter reveals that it never takes just one form. It wears many faces, each one shaped by geography, by light, by wind, by the long tilt of Earth's axis. You begin your journey at the top of the world, the Arctic, a land where winter is not a season, but a rhythm that stays for most of the year. Sunset arrives in late fall. Then the sun disappears entirely, dipping below the horizon for months. Not darkness, just a soft, deep twilight called polar night. A gentle cliffhanger rises. How can life continue when the sun doesn't rise at all? Science offers a quiet explanation. Even without direct sunlight, the sky glows with auroras. The moon reflects off endless snow. Ice acts like a giant mirror, catching whatever light remains. And beneath that dim glow, Arctic animals, foxes, reindeer, seals, polar bears, continue their ancient routines. A micro-dopamine settles in. During polar night, the human eye becomes more sensitive, adjusting to shades of blue it normally ignores. You drift downward now, across the planet's curve, toward the bottom of the world. Antarctica. If the Arctic feels like a long twilight, Antarctica feels like a cathedral of cold, vast, silent, unreachable. It is the coldest place on Earth, not because of latitude alone, but because its elevation averages nearly 7,500 feet. Cold air sinks, warmth escapes, ice reflects most sunlight away. Here, winter temperatures can fall below 100 degrees. Winds can travel faster than any winter gust elsewhere. Your mind whispers a gentle cliffhanger. Does anything survive such intensity? A quiet yes, not mammals, not trees, but microscopic life, bacteria, algae, tiny creatures that freeze, thaw, and freeze again, surviving in pockets of salty brine beneath the ice. Emperor penguins endure too, forming huddles so tight they reduce heat loss by minimizing exposed surface area. A micro-dopamine arrives. Penguins rotate positions in the huddle, ensuring no individual freezes at the edge. You rise from the frozen continent and drift into the vastness of northern Asia, Siberia. A land where cold has shaped not only climate, but culture, architecture, clothing, and the pace of life itself. You imagine a village at 50 degrees. Smoke rising straight from chimneys, trees cracking in the night, footsteps crunching like breaking glass. And yet people continue. Shopping, working, traveling, living. A quiet question surfaces. How do humans adapt to such severe cold? Clothing becomes layered carefully. Homes use thick insulation of wood and packed snow. Meals center around warmth-rich foods. Routes are planned by wind direction and visibility. Another micro-dopamine spark appears. In Siberian cold, diesel fuel gels. so engines are sometimes left running overnight to prevent freezing. You drift west now, across oceans of snow and ancient forests, until you reach Scandinavia. Here, winter is not only weather, but culture, not only darkness, but comfort. The word hygge rises gently, a Danish and Norwegian concept meaning warmth through togetherness, simplicity, light. You imagine a Scandinavian evening, candles burning softly, wool blankets folded on chairs, a pot of stew, simmering, people gathered, not rushed, not distracted. A cliffhanger appears. Why does comfort matter more in winter? Science answers quietly. Cold heightens the brain's need for safety signals, warmth, connection, shared spaces. Hygge is more than a tradition, it is a biological response framed in culture. A microdopamine follows. Candlelight contains more wavelengths in the yellow-orange spectrum, which the human brain perceives as calming and protective. You continue south now, where winter takes forms many people rarely imagine. High mountains. In the Rockies, the Alps, the Himalayas, winter arrives early, stays long, and shifts quickly with altitude. A warm valley can sit beneath a summit swept by blizzard winds. Snowpack builds in layers, storing water for spring rivers. Avalanches slide not because of weight alone, but because of weak layers buried deep within the snow. You wonder softly, how does altitude change winter so dramatically? Air grows thinner, holding less heat. Moisture condenses quickly. Temperature drops about 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit with every 1,000 feet of elevation. Another microdopamine settles in. Sunburn is more common in snowy mountains than on beaches because snow reflects up to 80% of UV radiation. You descend the mountains now, drifting into temperate regions where winter feels gentler but still meaningful. In the American Midwest, long quiet stretches of farmland rest under snow that stabilizes soil, protects seeds, and provides moisture when it melts. In Japan, regions like Hokkaido receive deep, powdery snow, ideal for skiing. In Europe, winter markets fill small towns with warm lights. And then, a subtle surprise. Winter reaches even the desert. In the high deserts of the American Southwest, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, nights can fall below freezing. Dry air loses heat rapidly. Frost coats cacti. Snow dusts red rock canyons, turning familiar landscapes into quiet sculptures. Your cliffhanger returns. Why does snow fall in deserts at all? Because elevation matters more than latitude. The desert sky stays clear, letting warm air escape quickly. Moisture, when it arrives, freezes easily. One more microdopamine appears, soft and satisfying. Snow in deserts often sublimates, turning from solid to vapor without melting. You begin to see winter through a new lens, not as one cold season, but as a collection of thousands of variations, each shaped by land and climate. Polar nights, desert snow, mountain storms, Scandinavian warmth, Siberian silence, Antarctic ice. And beneath all these differences lies a shared truth. The Earth's tilt, the slow movement of air, the universal search for warmth and light. As the images of winter across the globe drift through you, another gentle question begins to form. The kind that leads naturally toward your next chapter. If winter can shape landscapes and cultures so differently, what secrets does frozen water hold deep within its layers? Secrets about Earth's past and the history locked inside ice itself. That question becomes the quiet bridge guiding you from winter around the world to the deeper science of ice, snow, and the memory of water preserved for hundreds of thousands of years. You drift slowly away from the deserts dusted with snow, the polar nights, the Scandinavian glow of candlelight, the towering mountains glazed in winter blue. And as the vast map of global winter folds gently into memory, a quiet curiosity begins to rise beside you. If winter shapes landscapes and cultures across the world, what secrets lie inside the frozen water itself? The question feels like touching the surface of a frozen lake. Cool, smooth, hiding depth beneath stillness. You follow it as it leads you deeper, past what winter looks like, toward what winter remembers. You begin with a strange and beautiful idea: water that stays liquid below freezing. Supercooled water. At first it sounds impossible. Liquid at 20 degrees, still moving, still clear. But water can remain unfrozen if it has no impurity, no dust particle, no seed crystal to start the freezing process. A tiny cliffhanger rises. What happens when supercooled water finally touches something? Science whispers its answer. It freezes instantly, not gradually, not gently, but in a wave that spreads faster than the eye can follow. A transformation triggered by a single moment of contact. A soft micro-dopamine rests in this truth. Airplane wings, tree branches, and even your own hair can become that trigger in the right conditions. You move from this delicate phenomenon to something sturdier, the structure of ice itself. Ice is not one thing, it is many. You picture the familiar ice of lakes, rivers, and snow. The version called Ice E, with molecules arranged in hexagons that create the six-sided symmetry of every snowflake. But then another gentle cliffhanger appears. Are there other forms of ice hidden in nature? Yes, more than a dozen other crystalline structures exist, each shaped by pressure rather than temperature. Ice 2, Ice V, Ice 7th. Forms found deep within planets, in the high-pressure mantles of icy moons, or created experimentally in laboratories. A micro-dopamine spark settles. Ice 7 exists naturally inside diamonds pulled from more than 400 miles beneath Earth's surface. Even in winter's calm, water reveals a universe of possibilities. You drift now towards something larger, massive, slow, patient. Glaciers. They seem motionless, like frozen mountains. But you sense another cliffhanger forming. If glaciers are solid, how do they move? Their secret is pressure. At the base, where the glacier meets bedrock, immense weight increases temperature. Ice softens, becoming plastic, able to deform and flow. A glacier does not slide like a rigid block. It oozes, creeps, glides forward in a slow river of solid water. Some glaciers move only inches per day. Others, during surges, can shift several feet in a single hour. A micro-dopamine. Glaciers carve valleys by grinding rock beneath them, sculpting entire landscapes with the patience of time. You descend deeper into winter's layers until you reach one that stays frozen not for a season, but for centuries. Permafrost. Soil, rock, and ice locked below the surface, some of it frozen for tens of thousands of years. Your quiet cliffhanger returns. What keeps permafrost frozen even when summers warm the ground above? Its secret lies in depth. Below a certain point, sometimes just a few feet, sometimes hundreds, the ground never warms enough to thaw. Cold becomes part of the Earth's permanent memory. Trapped inside permafrost are ancient roots, grains of pollen, insects, animal bones, and pockets of methane. Fragments of history sealed in cold. Another micro-dopamine reaches you. Scientists have awakened plants from seeds frozen in permafrost for over 30,000 years. You sit with that. Life waiting in the cold longer than human civilization has existed. You drift further still, until winter reveals its deepest archive. Ice cores. Cylinders of ice drilled from Antarctica, Greenland, and ancient glaciers. Layer upon layer of frozen snowfall compacted over millennia. Each layer is a year, A winter, a breath of the atmosphere captured in bubbles no larger than grains of sand. Your cliffhanger opens. What can these bubbles tell us? Science answers with quiet wonder. They contain the chemistry of ancient air, carbon dioxide, methane, dust, volcanic ash, records of fires, storms, warming periods, cooling periods. A microdopamine settles. The oldest ice cores contain air from more than 800,000 years ago. You imagine it. The breath of early humans, of mammoths, of forests now long vanished, preserved inside a tiny sphere of ice. You feel yourself drifting through the layers of an ice core, like slipping through pages of a frozen diary. At 10 feet down, snow that fell before electricity was invented. At 200 feet down, snow from before the Roman Empire. At 1,000 feet down, snow from the last ice age. At 2,500 feet down, snow from a world so ancient it feels like a dream. Another soft cliffhanger arrives. Why does ice preserve history better than stone or soil? Ice seals. Ice protects. Ice does not mix or shift like sediment. Each winter's snow compresses gently onto the last, layer by layer, a quiet stack of moments frozen in order. Water becomes memory. You feel the elegance of it, that something as common as frozen water carries the story of Earth itself. And as you drift back upward from the deep ice, winter offers one last insight. Snow, ice, and water move through cycles far longer than any human life. A snowflake falling tonight may melt in spring, flow into a river, join an ocean, evaporate into a cloud, and return as snow on a glacier years later, or centuries later, or never melt again. Frozen water is not just cold. It is a traveler, a historian, a sculptor of landscapes. And as you hold that image, a final gentle question rises. One that leads naturally to your next chapter. If frozen water remembers so much of Earth's past, what has winter meant to human beings, their cultures, their stories, their beliefs, through all those long, cold centuries? That question becomes the soft bridge carrying you from the science of ice into the world of winter in human history, myth, and meaning. You rise softly from the deep layers of ancient ice, from bubbles that hold the breath of mammoths, from crystals that remember forgotten storms. And as you return to the surface of the present world, another curiosity stirs gently beside you. If winter preserves the memory of Earth, what memories has winter left within us? The question feels warm despite the cold. It leads you towards stories, traditions, and histories, toward the ways humans have shaped their lives around the rhythm of winter for thousands of years. You follow it, moving slowly, as if stepping into a library lit only by fire. Your journey begins with the oldest companions of winter, light and fire. You picture ancient people watching the sun slip lower each day, shadows growing longer, night stretching like deep blue curtains across the sky. A soft cliffhanger forms. How did humans respond to this lengthening darkness? Science offers context. Darkness influences circadian rhythms, sleep hormones, and mood. But ancient people experienced it without clocks or electricity. They felt winter in their bones, and so they turned to flames. Bonfires, torches, candles, signals of warmth and survival. You imagine a winter solstice gathering in an ancient village, people wrapping themselves in furs, children watching sparks float into the night, elders telling stories while flames crackle. Fire was more than heat. It was reassurance that the sun would return. A microdopamine arrives. Many winter festivals around the world still celebrate light in the darkest time of year. Not because of religion alone, but because of biology. Humans are wired to seek illumination when daylight fades. You follow that warmth a little farther through time until you reach a different kind of winter influence. movement, migration. For early humans, winter shaped routes, decisions, and entire patterns of settlement. People followed animals south. They crossed valleys seeking food. They learned to store grains, salt meat, preserve roots. Another gentle cliffhanger slips in. How did winter change the way civilizations formed? The answer unfolds slowly. Winter forced cooperation. Communities shared heat, fuel, and shelter. Villages grew around hearths, literal centers of warmth. Later, winter shaped politics and war. Armies planned campaigns around cold seasons. Rivers froze, becoming bridges or barriers. Snow hid tracks. Cold sapped strength. A soft microdopamine settles in. Napoleon's retreat from Russia and George Washington's winter encampment at Valley Forge both turned not on battles, but on winter itself. You drift now toward architecture, the shapes humans built to endure the cold. Thick walls in Siberia, sod houses in Iceland, wooden cabins in Scandinavia, communal bathhouses in Korea, stone hearths in New England colonial homes. Another question rises. How did winter influence the very walls around us? The answer carries a quiet beauty. Structures adapted to conserve heat. Roofs steepened to shed snow. Windows were placed to catch weak winter sun. Communal living grew stronger as people clustered for warmth. A microdopamine arrives gently. The English word cozy once referred to a sheltered place protected from wind. You pause, letting that warmth drift through you. Then winter reveals its softer, more imaginative influence. The stories told in its long, slow nights, folk tales of hibernation, legends of bears as guardians of sleep, tales of winter spirits, snow queens, frost giants, stories whispered beside fires when work stopped early and darkness settled. A small cliffhanger appears. Why did so many cultures create winter myths about sleep? Science answers tenderly. Humans naturally feel more tired in winter due to reduced daylight and increased melatonin. Ancient people interpreted this as a seasonal invitation to rest. So they imagined animals who slept through the cold as wise and sacred. Bears became symbols of renewal. Hedgehogs, tortoises, and bats became storytellers in myths of transformation. A microdopamine spark, the idea of hibernation appears in ancient Greek writings, where the word meant winter passage or winter journey. You follow that linguistic thread until it leads you to something even more surprising, the very origin of the word winter. Another gentle cliffhanger opens. Where did the word come from? The English word winter traces back to Old Germanic wintrus, which likely meant time of water, not water flowing, but water frozen. Winter was named not for the cold, but for the ice. A soft microdopamine appears. Many ancient languages connected winter with frozen water long before they connected it with darkness or snow. You let that idea settle. To early humans, frozen lakes and rivers were the defining feature of the season. You drift now through centuries of winter's influence on art. Paintings in blues and whites, poems about stillness and solitude. Music composed to mimic snow drifting, winds sighing, flames crackling. Winter across cultures became a metaphor, a symbol for rest, reflection, the quiet turning of the soul. But beneath all of these traditions, firelight, migration, architecture, folk tales, lies one universal truth. Winter slowed the world, and when the world slowed, people listened more closely. To the wind in the trees, to the crackle of logs, to the soft rhythm of their own thoughts. Then a final, gentle question rises to meet you, the kind that leads naturally toward the closing chapters of your journey. If winter has shaped the way we build, travel, gather, speak, and dream, What does winter offer us today, in a world that moves faster than any season ever intended? That soft question becomes your next step. The quiet bridge guiding you from winter's place in history toward winter's gift to the human spirit in our modern, restless age. You rise softly from the long corridors of history, from winter fires in ancient villages, from migrations across frozen rivers, from stories whispered under fur blankets. And as those memories settle into silence, another feeling begins to form beside you. Not a question this time, not a mystery waiting to be solved, but something gentler, something inward. What does winter offer the human spirit? The thought arrives like a warm cup placed into your hands on a cold morning. It invites you to lean closer, not toward the world outside, but toward your own inner landscape. Winter begins its lesson with something simple: slowness. The world pauses, days shorten, trees stop growing, animals rest or move more carefully. Even the sun seems to take its time crossing the sky. A tiny cliffhanger stirs. Why does slowing down feel so different in winter? Science answers with tender clarity. Reduced daylight increases melatonin, the hormone of rest. Colder temperatures signal the body to conserve energy. Your physiology itself begins to whisper, slow down, breathe deeper, move softly. A micro-dopamine appears. Melatonin levels in winter evenings can rise nearly twice as high as in summer. You feel this truth intuitively. The way winter encourages you to linger over coffee, take longer baths, stay in bed a little more, savor warm food, read slowly, breathe intentionally. Slowness is not laziness, it is alignment with nature's rhythm. You drift to the next gift of winter: patience. Snow rarely falls all at once. Ice forms grain by grain. A winter storm builds over hours, not minutes. Trees wait months for warmth. Seeds wait even longer beneath the soil, untouched but alive. The gentle cliffhanger returns. Why does winter seem to teach patience more than any other season? Because so much of winter is unseen. Work happens underground, inside buds, within the minds of hibernating animals. Winter asks you to trust the process without watching every step. Another micro-dopamine arrives. In winter, many species of plants grow root systems far more actively than they grow leaves. You hold that idea like a soft, simple truth. That growth sometimes looks like waiting, and waiting sometimes looks like stillness. From patience, winter leads you toward its third offering: acceptance. The cold cannot be rushed. The snow cannot be pushed away. Storms will come or they won't. Light will return only when the planet turns toward it again. Winter is a season you cannot control, and so it becomes a gentle teacher in letting go. There is a quiet beauty in that. You move now toward one of winter's most profound gifts: silence. A silence created not by emptiness but by snow itself. Snow absorbing sound, softening edges, smoothing footsteps, lowering the world's volume to a level where you can hear your own thoughts again. A tiny cliffhanger emerges. Why does quiet feel healing in winter? Science explains softly. Silence reduces cortisol. Cold air sharpens the senses. Your attention shifts inward when stimuli fade away. A micro-dopamine settles. After snowfall, sound can be reduced by as much as 60% due to the air pockets between crystals. Winter gives you silence, not by taking sound away, but by cushioning it. You let that quiet envelop you for a moment, and in that stillness, another gift appears: deeper sleep. Longer nights, darker evenings, cooler bedroom temperatures, all of them help the body fall asleep more naturally. A gentle cliffhanger rises. Why is winter sleep often easier and heavier? Because cooler temperatures help the body lower its core temperature faster. a key step in falling asleep. Another micro-dopamine appears gently. The ideal sleep temperature is around 65 degrees C, a range naturally aligned with many winter nights. You notice it in your own body. The comfort of thick blankets, the softness of early darkness, the way your breath feels steadier when the world is quiet. Winter invites rest, not as indulgence, but as necessity. You drift now toward warmth, not the heat of summer, but the quiet, intentional warmth that belongs only to winter. Fireplaces, candles, wool socks, hot chocolate, the glow of lamps on dark evenings. A subtle cliffhanger forms. Why does warmth feel more emotional in winter? Because warmth is contrast. Because your skin remembers cold. Because your mind feels protected when light pulls gently in dark corners. Science adds another tender detail. Warm colors, amber, gold, orange, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, encouraging relaxation and connection. Your micro-dopamine arrives with a soft smile. This is why winter campfires and holiday lights feel comforting even when they're small. Winter doesn't flood you with brightness. It offers small, steady glows. And then winter reveals one of its quietest gifts. Morning stillness. A winter morning feels different from any other kind. The air is crisp, the sky pale, the world slow to wake. Footsteps are muffled. Breath rises like silver smoke. Light spreads gently instead of sharply. You wonder, why do winter mornings feel so peaceful? Because humidity is low, making air seem cleaner. Because the angle of sunlight is softer. Because cold air reduces atmospheric shimmer, making the horizon appear steadier. Another micro-dopamine unfolds. Winter sunlight contains more red wavelengths, which create a feeling of calm when they reach the eye. You hold that in your mind like a warm stone. The idea that winter mornings are soothing not by chance, but by physics. And now winter offers its final, perhaps most meditative gift. Watching snow fall. Snow doesn't rush. Snow doesn't demand. It drifts. It floats. It turns the air into a slow choreography. A gentle cliffhanger emerges. Why is watching snowfall so calming? Because falling snow reduces contrast in the visual field, slowing neural processing in the brain. Your mind shifts into a softer mode. Less analyzing, more drifting. A micro-dopamine glitters, slow, repeating patterns, like falling snow, activate the same brain regions as deep breathing exercises. Snow becomes a form of natural meditation. You imagine it now. Flakes drifting through lamplight, branches slowly collecting white, the world exhaling into stillness. Winter, in all its depth, becomes less a season and more a state of mind. A place where slowness isn't failure, where quiet isn't emptiness, where rest isn't avoidance, where light isn't lost, just softer. And as these truths settle around you, a final question rises. One that guides you gently toward the closing of your long winter journey. If winter teaches us to slow down, to listen, to rest, to accept, what happens when we carry these lessons forward into the seasons of light? That question becomes the soft bridge leading you toward your closing chapter. The moment when winter's wisdom becomes your own, held long after the snow melts. And now, as our quiet journey comes to a close, the world around you softens again. The deep winter night settles outside your window, snow lying still, moonlight brushing its surface with a faint silver glow. The cold waits on the other side of the glass, calm, patient, not asking anything from you. Just reminding you that stillness is a place you can enter whenever you need to rest. You breathe slowly. You feel your body settle quietly. Thoughts fade like distant footprints disappearing in fresh snow. The night is wide enough to hold every worry you carried today, and gentle enough to let them go. So let the soft darkness wrap around you. Let the hush of winter sink into your breathing. Let your mind float the way snow falls. Slow, weightless, guided only by quiet air. You are warm, you are safe, you are exactly where you need to be. Tonight the world is peaceful, and you can be too. Sleep well, sleep deeply, and let winter keep watch while you drift into rest. Good night, and may the calm of this winter night carry you all the way into sleep.